Hi, I'm Sarah Baldwin. Welcome back to Sunday with Sarah. I've been gone the past week. I was out in California doing college visits with my son, William, who's joining me here today. Thank you for agreeing to do this, honey.
No problem.
So, William is just finishing his junior year of high school and applied to a special program at USC, University of Southern California. He was invited to apply to a program where if he was accepted, he gets to begin college a year early, skip his senior year of high school, and start in the fall as a freshman. It's a very competitive program, so he applied last fall. But we didn't think too much about it and assumed he'd do another year of high school until this spring he got a big fat envelope, an acceptance letter. And so we, aside from that one application, we hadn't really done the college visit thing and hadn't looked at other schools. So spring break week, William and I headed out to California. We visited USC and then some other schools he's interested in just to compare. And so during our trip and during this time, I started thinking a lot about my kids' Waldorf education and how it prepared them for college and adulthood and the future. And I thought this would be a great opportunity to have William come and have a conversation with me about his own thoughts as a Waldorf alum. So what I think is really interesting is that in your childhood, in your early childhood years up to, say middle school, you and your brother weren't exposed to much media. You didn't watch TV, you didn't watch many movies, and you didn't really have computer access except when you would sneak on. But Harper has gone on to, he's a junior in film school, he's a filmmaker, and what are you planning to major in college?
Computer science.
Well, how do you explain that?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do actually with not having access to those things early on. Because I think when they're sort of there and they're just something that you use every day from a very early age, you kind of just see them as these like facts of life. That you don't see them as tools so much as toys, maybe. I guess. Well, not this kind of toy, but that you're not as interested in the behind the scenes of how they work and how they're made. You know, films or computer programs, that sort of thing. That I think without sort of a lot of creative play, that you might just see them as, something that's designed to entertain you.
Right. So you're saying children who spend a lot of time they're passive. Those who are consuming, watching TV, playing video games, they're kind of passively consuming those media images.
Right.
And so that kind of supports what I always tell parents. And what Rudolf Steiner believed, the founder of Waldorf education, believed strongly that children who spend their childhoods playing creatively and out of their own imaginations, those are the children who can go on to become the creative thinkers, the inventors, the innovators later in life. Mm-hmm. And a lot of research has borne this out. Mm-hmm. So a lot of parents are concerned too that the children in a Waldorf school won't be prepared for high school and college. We don't have a Waldorf school here in our community in Maine. There is one at the Americanique Waldorf School. It's more than an hour south of here, so that wasn't an option. But tell us a little bit about the high school you go to.
I go to a high school called the Watershed School, and it's a very small school. It has about 24 kids, but in a lot of ways I think it's very similar to the Waldorf school that I went to for elementary and middle school. There aren't a lot of tests. There are tests, but there's not as much emphasis placed on them. and there's a lot more focus, I think, on creative thinking and sort of going outside, just studying for tests and trying to get, the grade. Which I think is a good thing, that when tests are used, they're used to just make sure students are, understanding everything and on the right track. That they're not being used to gauge whether the student is, smart or good. And I think it's a lot of similar in a lot of ways, in the way it sort of fosters sort of creative thinking.
And I know you were really worried during your high school years that your school doesn't give grades and doesn't have AP tests and the resources of a much bigger high school. You were worried that you wouldn't be able to get into a good college,
Mm-hmm.
but now you've just been accepted to a program that has an 8% acceptance rate. In spite of not having grades, you have, like a Waldorf school, written reports that tell you much more than a letter can about your interest in the class, how you contribute to the class, and your performance, and whether or not your work is done. It tells you so much more. And
Right.
I think I know that admissions officers in colleges do take the time to read those kinds of reports and are looking for students from alternative educational settings, including homeschoolers. Homeschoolers, too, bring so much interest in subjects often, and lifelong learning.
Mm-hmm. I think there's been more, focus on like really learning and pursuing passions. I think, not to say that, all public schools go against this, but that I think if a student has had a background in that creative sort of environment, I think that there's a lot of difference between that and somebody who's, been on the college track, getting all the getting a 4.0 GPA and getting all the tests, where it's not this environment where it's about the learning and the passion for it, that it's more about, proving you can take tests well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of students from a background that's had more of the almost Waldorf ideals to it, that I think there's a lot more potential, or maybe not potential, but a lot more chance that they're going to be creative and less focused on making sure that they have a 4.0 GPA, and more focused on really connecting and
Right.
with the content.
Because I'd say both Waldorf education and your high school are very experiential learning. When you do science, it's really hands-on. I think when you have a living experience of things, it goes much deeper, and the memory stays with you much more deeply than just memorizing facts for a test, spitting it back out on a test, and moving on.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for sharing a little bit with me today. I urge you to read this study on Waldorf graduates that I will post on my blog. Some statistics from that study show that 94% of Waldorf graduates go on to attend college or university. 88% of those students of Waldorf graduates end up graduating from college. 42% choose science as a major, and 47% choose humanities as a major. 91% are active in lifelong education, and 92% placed a high value on critical thinking. And this is a quote from a professor, a biology professor at Mount Holyoke College, Stan Rachutin. And this quote is very similar to many of the comments I hear from teachers at our local public high school when they encounter our Waldorf graduates. He wrote, "The Waldorf student I taught had a breadth of interest, willingness to explore new areas and make connections to what she already knew, artistic sense, and an ability to apply it to scientific problems. She also brought a strong, highly individualistic, though non-sectarian spiritual sense to her work. Her world was larger and more interesting than herself." So I realize in talking to you that not all of you have children in a Waldorf school. Not all of you have the opportunity for Waldorf education, and many of you will choose other paths of learning. And this isn't to say Waldorf education is the only way or the best way. There's so many ways to engender a love of learning in students, and so much of what they experience in their home life with you will influence them, and your attitudes toward life and learning will influence them. But I bring this to you today mostly to dispel the myths that Waldorf education is all fairies and make-believe and doesn't adequately prepare students for high school and college. I'm here to tell you I've seen many students go through 8 grades at our local Waldorf school, more than 8 grades, early childhood, 10 grades, and go on to become really creative, thoughtful, successful adults. And I bring you one example here today. So thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I welcome your comments, your thoughts, your questions. Please leave them as a comment on the blog. And I'll see you again next week. Have a great week. Bye-bye.